So, welcome everybody. I can see now we have Matthew Ford in the room with us, so we're delighted to have you, Matt. I think we'll give you a round of applause, but you'll just see hands going because they're all on mute. But it's really nice to see you. Had the pleasure of working with Matt a few times, and he's absolute world class, and we're really pleased to have you. Matt, I think we'll just get started straight away if we can.
Sure.
So the first question we have is from Jelana. So if you just want to unmute yourself, Jelana. Just introduce yourself to Matt and then fire away with your first question.
I'm Jelana. My question was, how did you get your break into the industry?
Hi, Jelana. Well, I started. Breaks are strange things because it depends how you define break. I started. We just used to, weirdly, we used to just walk around the streets, me and my friends, and we used to just sing some songs. And one of those friends was a member at a working men's club just up the road from where I grew up. And they used to have a charity fundraiser once a year. And he basically went in there and said, "My friend's a singer, will you listen to him and put him in the show?" And they said, "Yeah, bring him in." And I went in, and the guy sat there and played the keyboard, and I sang a Blue Moon or something like that. And they said, "Right, you're part of the show." So I went in there and did a couple of numbers. And at that time, there were still a lot of those clubs, working men's clubs and social clubs. And a lot of people were singing to backing tracks, and that's what they did. And that was the thing that happened at the time. And the guy who ran the entertainments there came up to me after I'd done this performance, and he said, "I'll give you some work if you get the backing tracks together and a PA system and all that. I'll give you some work." So that's how it started. That was 1989, and then I did that for 6 years or so. And then in 1996, I applied to be on a TV show called Stars in Their Eyes, which you wouldn't have ever seen it, but it was where people went on and pretended to be somebody else. But at the time, it was as big as the X Factor is now and The Voice and all that sort of stuff. There were 11, 12 million people watching it every week. And I auditioned alongside 70,000 other people, and I got on singing as a guy called Harry Connick Jr. And from that, I got offered work with big bands, and then all my live work started. And it's been a case of I've worked hard to progress, get better, and then get noticed by different people along the way. And that's I suppose how I've got the breaks along the way, is a little bit of fortune, being in the right place at the right time, but working hard at where I am at the moment to get to the next stage.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks, Jelana.
Did that make any sense?
If any of you guys haven't heard of Harry Connick Jr., you must check him out.
Oh, yeah.
I hope you've all heard of him. He's absolutely unbelievable.
He's the best, yeah.
He is, yeah. Georgia Fair, do you want to ask your questions, Georgia, or would you like me to ask them on your behalf?
I don't mind. I can ask it.
Yeah, I'd rather you did than me, so off you go.
I think you've kind of answered it, but I was wondering is it really about who you know in the industry, or is it about what you know? Because I know that having connections can help, get jobs, or can you just have talent and go off that?
Hi, Georgia. Well, I think there's a bit of both. I think to make an impact in the industry, you've got to have that talent. You've got to have that work ethic and work really hard. And then I think the breaks will come. And the more you put yourself about, the more people you meet. And it's just like networking in any other business. If I work with, I was in the Sid Lawrence band, and I worked with those people for 5 years, and then in and out of that band came Deps on the saxophone, on the piano, on the whatever, all the instruments. Now all those Deps and all those people in the band go and work with other bands, and then when they need a singer, they say, "Oh, we got a singer in our band," or "I was working with a singer the other day." And that's generally how it is. Who you know, it's who you know rather than what you know, but you've still got to know your business in the first place. But that's how you do get breaks. It's the networking part rather than any sort of clique or anything like that. It's the networking of the business in general that helps you. But you have to work hard to get in somewhere in the first place, or just keep putting yourself about. You know, any experience you can get is good experience, and you never know who's in that room. You know, I've sung in rooms where there's been one or two people, but you don't know who those one or two people are. So every performance you give has to be absolutely at your very best, because they might be an international booker for, I don't know, massive concert halls. They might just be somebody who goes into that room and sits there because there's nothing on the telly, but you never know who they might be.
Georgia, did you have another question as well you wanted to ask?
I can't even remember my other question.
You want me to read it on your behalf? Because I have.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So it says, Matt, do you have any top tips that may benefit further aspiring singers on how to access jobs or auditions? I guess we've kind of covered it, but is there anything to add on that?
Put yourself about. Whatever experience you can get, grab it. It might be singing in someone's back garden. It might be singing for a wedding. It might be singing in a pub. It might be just jamming with friends. Any experience you can get, take it, because it all builds up your confidence and your ability, and all experience is good experience.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks, Georgia. Catherine, I know you had a question that you wanted me to read out. Do you still want me to read it out? The thumbs up or thumbs down, or would you like to say something? Okay. Catherine, actually, Matt was recently featured in one of the online videos we've done during lockdown. We've done some fantastic online videos. I know Sarah Naven has been in one as well, so well done, guys. But Catherine was going to ask, which I think is a great question, what advice do you wish somebody had given to your 18-year-old self?
Hi, Catherine. I wish that someone had told me to learn to read music, because I think I would have got a lot more opportunities in the session world and the recording world if I could read music, because I can't read music. And I wish somebody had said, look, this is going to be the most important thing. It's not the most important thing, but I wish somebody had told me how important it is to get into that other side, that other half of the industry.
Great advice. I've had a couple of questions off some of our singing teachers on behalf of their students, Matt. So we're kind of moving into more of the technical side of singing now. So the first question one of them asked me was, how do you keep your voice in trim? So I guess when we're in lockdown and you're not out singing every night, but what kind of things would you need to do? It's
tough, because the voice is basically, it's a muscle. Your singing voice is a muscle, and if you don't use your muscles, like if you don't use your legs get weak. Okay, so you have to keep it in trim. It's difficult because there's no substitute for singing for an hour and a half. There is no substitute for that. That's what keeps everything absolutely at the top of its game. But you can do exercises just to keep things ticking over and to keep your voices in trim. Now, I don't know whether you've got straws with you. Have you got straws?
I did ask them for those that could get.
You don't have to have them. It's just I thought it might be a nice thing to do. If you have a straw and you have a glass with water in it. Yep, excellent, Alice. Excellent. Right. If you don't have one, get yourself a straw. I've got a. Oh, Jelana's got one as well. Harriet, you got a curly straw. Excellent. I've got one of these things, which actually that's just a normal bottle. This is just a posh. It's just a rubber pipe basically, but it's a specifically designed thing. But it'll do exactly the same as you've got there. Now you put a little bit of water in the bottom of the glass. You might have a little bit much there, Alice, but just see what the pressure is. And what we're going to do is we're just going to blow into it, and the water. The bubbling in the water provides back pressure. So as you sing, your vocal folds, your vocal cords are coming together. And if you sing loudly, they come together harder. And if you shout, it's like banging them together all the time. If you cough, it's like banging them together all the time. So this gives us a chance to exercise the vocal cords without slapping them together all the time. So it'll build up the strength in the vocal folds, in the vocal cords, without having to hammer them all the time. So if you have a straw, I just want you to blow into it and phonate. So instead of just making bubbles, make a sound, sing a note. Now, what you can also do, you'll notice the more water you put in, the harder it is to blow into the water. So find a level where you're comfortable. And there's just a few exercises you can do. You can do scales. Make sure there's no air coming out the side of your mouth. And very important, you don't carry any tension here. It has to be nice and relaxed. And when you breathe in, don't go like that. Try and focus the air down and out, and stick your stomach out and feel the air filling all around your back as well. So you're breathing in, nice and relaxed. From then, you can then siren. Do you siren when you're warming up and things? And when you've moved on, doing a few of those, you can then sing a tune. So like sing Happy Birthday or something. And that's great for warming up. It's great for keeping your voice in trim. Costs you nothing. Get a straw from KFC or a milkshake straw from McDonald's, one that's got a decent size to it. Stick it in a glass of water every day. Do 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, and it'll just help keep the wheels turning. It'll just help keep the vocal cords nice and happy. And you can sing any song you like. You don't have to do Happy Birthday. You can sing any song you like. I tend to. I didn't warm up for years, and I didn't exercise my voice for 28 years. I just rocked up, sang, went home. After each gig, my voice was tired, but I just thought that was normal. And then I saw a speech and language therapist, and he gave me some exercises to do, and it completely changed my voice, completely. Wasn't tired afterwards. I could sing longer. I could sing more accurately. It was clearer. So just do a little bit each day, and you'll really reap the rewards.
Brilliant. What a great way of practicing. I think McDonald's are going to get a few extra visitors to get straws over the next day or two.
And it's quiet. It's quiet as well. So you're not upsetting the neighbours and your parents or whatever in the other room. It's nice and quiet.
Brilliant. Is there anything else you do to warm up, Matt? Say if you got to a gig, is there any other exercises specifically you do?
I sometimes do an exercise that was shown to me by a classical singer, and he said, this is good, you can do it anytime. You can do it for warming up, you can do it for exercising your voice. So you sing the word sing. So you breathe, relax, sing, and then push your tongue behind the top teeth. Sing, and then you go sing. So slide up and down. Sing, and then just go up. Sing. You can go down as well if you like. Go up and down and up and down. do that for 5 or 10 minutes. Great way of warming up as well, and a good way of seeing what shape your voice is in before the gig. You know, sometimes it's, you know, we're humans, and not every day you're not going to be on top of your game every single day. So it's just a good way of seeing where problems may lie in your range, if they happen to be there on that day.
Brilliant. I can see lots of people practicing that there as well, Matt, even though the mics are off. It seems like we had a lot of people with their mouths closed coming along with you.
Very important though, to just when you do it, relax your face, sing, so there's no tension there at all. Sing. Okay.
Great ideas there. Another question, Matt, is how do you learn songs?
Because I don't read music, because I never learned to read music, which is one of those things. I learn by listening. So it may take me anywhere between 300 and 500 listens to get the tune in properly. But I'm a bit of a stickler for getting it learned properly. I think that the most disrespectful thing you can do is sing the wrong notes and the wrong words. It's taken these, you know, Cole Porter was a genius. Irving Berlin was a genius. All these songwriters, they've poured their heart and soul into writing these songs, whether they wrote the music and words together or whether they just wrote one and there was a lyricist for the words. These people have created this beautiful thing. So you need to respect that and really, really learn it. So that's what I do. I learn by listening over and over and over again. But you have to listen to the right version. You have to listen to the version where people are singing the right notes and the right the right words. So sometimes Frank Sinatra, he took liberties. He didn't always sing the right notes and the right words. I was learning, just very quickly, for my first BBC prom, some Gene Kelly material, and I spent 3 months listening and learning. And then I went for a piano rehearsal with the conductor 5 days before the show, and he sat down and he said, right, just sing through, I can't remember what song it was, just sing through it. And I sang through it. He says, no, just do that again. And sang it again. He said, no, you're not getting it, you're not right. I said, well, that's how it sounds on the recording. That's exactly how it is on the recording. He said, well, Gene Kelly was singing it wrong then. And Gene Kelly had sung the wrong notes. So be very careful what you listen to.
Obviously happens to the best. I'm amazed 300 to 500 times Matt would listen to a song before actually singing it. I mean, I wonder how many, if you were to all be honest with yourselves, how many times you listen to a song, and do you really know those lyrics? Do you really know the meaning of that song? It'd be interesting. So 300 to 500. Wow. If you have only listened to it 100 times, imagine how much better you'd be if you listened to it 200. Matt, the next question was from a bit of a fan of yours who's here, who obviously is a bit shy to ask the question themselves, but it's a bit more personal. It says, what did you learn from working with the Sid Lawrence Orchestra, and how did you progress when you started working with the John Wilson Orchestra?
The Sid Lawrence Orchestra was a massive break for me. I mean, we were talking about how I got my breaks. Well, it was after the Stars in Their Eyes thing. I got some work with a big band, and then one of the fans of the Sid Lawrence Orchestra saw me at one of those gigs and said, our singer is leaving, you should get an audition. So I went and got an audition. Now, I had very limited experience in performing in a theatre on a stage setting, even more limited experience singing in front of a big band. And the learning curve was enormous and rapid. Just to stand in front of a band, I mean, you guys will know, just to stand in front of a band is a scary thing. It's a really scary prospect anyway. But when all those guys have decades of experience, and all they want to do is get the singer off the stage so they can go to the pub and have a pint, that the pressure is on. The pressure is really on to know your stuff before you set foot on that stage. So I learnt, and this is one of the most valuable lessons that I learned, was never stand in front of a band unprepared. That was the biggest lesson I learned. Always be prepared, because you might only have one shot to sing through that song, and it'd be a new song. So it's an arrangement that you've had to learn, and words you've had to learn, and you'll sing it through once, and then they'll say, okay, next time you do that, we'll be in front of the audience. So that learning curve was terrifying and steep. I was with them for 5 years, and I think I was learning every gig. We did about 150 gigs a year. It was a busy band, and I think I learnt something every single gig with that band. Then when I moved to work with John, after I left the Sid Lawrence band, I started working with John in about 2006, and John demanded a slightly different thing from me. He just wanted me to get better and better and better and better. I thought I was great. I thought I'd cracked it. 5 years with the Sid Lawrence band, done 1,000 gigs with them, and we've done theatres, and they've all been sold out. And we've done 2,000 seat theatres, and all this great stuff, and worked with strings and everything. And then I started working with John and realised that I needed to raise my game. If I wanted to keep that gig, I needed to raise my game. So then I started getting more into the stylistic approach to the music and singing it. I've always sort of sung it in style, but I had to really work at singing it in the true style, how it was meant to be sung in the first place, and really getting inside the story of the song, really getting inside it. So that's where learning the words, the proper words, comes in. Learning those is absolutely paramount of importance, because you have to know the story, and you have to know the story because you have to sell the story to the audience. And that's what I learned from John, how to sell the story and keep selling the story. He'd say, no, you need to do that again. You need to do that again. I'm not getting the story. You need to do that again. And rather than just having one shot at it, he would work me into the ground until I'd convinced him of the story. Because once I'd convinced him, he knew that I could convince the audience.
Thank you, Matt. For those of you that haven't watched Matt with the John Wilson Orchestra, I think it's still on BBC iPlayer catch-up, Matt. But I recommend all of you to go listen to not just Matt, who, as we know, is amazing, but the band as well. It's just fantastic, and live at the Royal Albert Hall in front of thousands of people. It will really, really show you the top level which you aspire to be. I'm just looking at chat, and Aidan. Can I ask how Matt prepares in the days before a performance or show?
Right, well, lots and lots of listening, Aidan, lots of listening. One of the keys is being prepared. No, it's not just being prepared in terms of the music and the vocal performance, but making sure that everything else is organised. So if it's a dinner suit kind of gig, make sure the dinner suit is ready. Make sure it's not at the bottom in a pile at the bottom of the wardrobe. Or make sure your shirt's ironed. Make sure your shoes are clean. Make sure so that on the day you're not thinking, right, where did I put that suit? Because the preparation is key. We used to say in the old days, I was a teacher, and we used to say failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So you have to be in control of everything. As a singer, you have to be in control of everything. So make sure there's fuel in the car. Make sure your alarm's set. Make sure the shirt's ironed. Make sure the shoes are clean. Make sure the gig bag has everything in it you need. Make sure if you need to have your words in the gig bag to rehearse in the dressing room, make sure they're printed off and they're in there. Just details. That's what I'd say in the run up to gigs. It's just making sure, and if it's a gig where it's my band and I've got music, make sure I've got music, make sure the lights, I've got these LED lights, make sure they're charged, make sure I've got charging cables in the bag as well, just in case something happens with them. Make sure the music stands are all ready to be loaded into the car. Organise yourself. That's what you do in the days leading up to a gig.
Thanks, Matt. Aidan is a young singer singing in one of our soul bands, but he got into my jazz band, which I know you know well, and we took him to Germany last summer, and he did a fantastic job singing those big band classics. So well done, Aidan. You're following in good footsteps there. Thanks, Matt. Someone asked a question, which I think this is going to be really relevant to everybody in this room, is what's the biggest mistake you see aspiring singers make? Right.
I work with a lot of young singers, and I get asked a lot of questions from young singers. They'll send me material, they'll email me and say, have you got any tips? And the biggest tip that I can give, and the biggest mistake, is it's all linked, is that they don't know the words. The words are the story. The story is what you sell to your audience, and that's the link. You have to have that link with you and the audience. If you don't have that, they might as well be watching the telly, because you're reaching into people's hearts and you're connecting with people's emotions as a singer. You're looking at them, you're smiling at them, or you're making them feel sad or happy or whatever. That's your job. You're selling that story. If you don't know the story, or if you sing a but instead of an and, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The biggest mistake I see is singers singing and not listening. And that's all part of the same thing. You have to know the words, you have to know the story. If you're not listening to the wrong words coming out your mouth, then you might as well not bother, because it's so important to know the words, the proper words, and the story.
Brilliant, thanks, Matt. This is actually the fourth workshop we've done. We've had a brass workshop, a saxophone workshop, and a drum workshop, and every one of our guests has said listening is key. Yeah. Really, really important. Yeah. Harriet, you did send in a question. Do you want to say the question yourself, or do you want me to say it?
I'll say it.
Thanks, Harriet.
Were you inspired by anyone to become a singer?
Yes, I was, actually. Hello, Harriet. There was a chap who, he was a lorry driver. He worked with my dad, Norman, and he and his friend was a comedian. Norman was the singer. He was the singer that never made it in the town. You know, he was a super cool guy. He reminded me of Dean Martin. They used to come around the house and he would just burst into song, and he would just be the coolest guy. And he was a great friend as well. And I just wanted to be like him. I just wanted to be like super cool. I thought, he's so cool. I just wanted to be like Norman, and he inspired me to start.
And we all need that someone, don't we?
Absolutely.
And if you've not yet found that someone, keep listening, and that someone will come into your life. Just looked at the chat, and Jelana, thanks for your question. So I just need to quickly get it up because I've forgotten it already. Which is, how did you go about finding your own identity as a singer?
That's a good question. That is a really good question. I listened, and I still do, to a lot of different singers. And what I did was, I didn't really want to sound like, even though that's how I started, by impersonating somebody. That was a very limited, a very short amount of time that I did that, and I didn't really ever want to sound like someone else. I just wanted to sing. And so what I did was I listened to Sinatra, listened to Sammy Davis Jr. and Bobby Darin and Tony Bennett and Matt Monroe and Bing Crosby and Al Bowley and all these great singers. And then I tried to pick what I thought was the best bit from all of them and adapt that and try and pinch that and melt that into my own style with my own voice. And that's what I'm still trying to do. I'll still listen to people and think, cool, that's a great way of singing that, or wow, listen to his breathing on that, or listen to the energy on that, or how he just does that little thing, or how she does this little thing, and be inspired by that, but not try and copy that. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? You can be inspired and motivated by it and influenced by it without being a copycat. And I think that's how I've developed my own style, and through singing the same things over and over and over again. 1,000 gigs with a big band, and I must have sung I've Got You Under My Skin 5,000 times, with bands over the years. So I've it's morphed into my own way of singing that song. I'm not doing a voice. I'm not trying to do the Sinatra version. I'm singing the song that was made famous by Frank Sinatra, but I've just sung it and tried to develop it. Think, actually, if I might try this tonight, I might try just phrasing it like that, or I might try breathing here, or I think I can get more out of the story if I do this. And that's the way I've sort of developed over the years.
Well, thanks, Delana. Great question. Thanks, Matt. Matt, obviously you play in songs are in lots and lots of different bands and different places. So how important is it to have good quality arrangements of the songs you're singing?
Well, another big lesson that I learned with the Sid Lawrence band was never put rubbish in front of a band. And I had a bit of a problem with that at the start. I thought, well, surely they're just, if you put music in front of somebody, music is music and they'll play it. But that's not the case. The bands, the musicians, present company accepted, can be quite strange people. They can be quite picky about things. If they look at an arrangement and they hear an arrangement and they don't like it, or if they see an arrangement and it's they know it's a cheap one off the internet or something like that, and they know that those arrangements aren't normally very good, they don't tend to want to play them with the same energy and vigour that they would if it's a Sid Lawrence arrangement or a Colin Skinner or a John Wilson arrangement, or something that they know is top quality writing. They'll physically back off from it. So you don't get the same volume, you don't get the same intensity, you don't get the same energy in the music behind you. So that's why I think it's really, really important to have the best quality material you can, because when you put it in front of a band, they go, wow. And sometimes it might be really hard for them to play, but you'll see them smiling. And once they're smiling, then you get more input from them, more energy from them, more intensity, and it makes you sound better as a singer, because it's that big wall of sound that is carrying your voice forward.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt. And I think we all sing better when we're singing a song we like with a really good band behind us. And I guess it's trying to get that energy all the time, 100%. I'd imagine that everybody in the room here has singing lessons. Matt, do you have singing lessons?
No, I've had an odd lesson. A couple of years ago, I decided to ask a friend of mine who's an opera singer. I said, I'd like to just try and see how you approach things. And I would advise everybody to get singing lessons. It's a bit like playing golf. You might enjoy it, but you need the technical aspects to help you do it better. So I would advise lessons, because I think breathing and you can't learn. I don't think you can learn phrasing and timing in this for this genre of music. I think that you have to learn that by listening, and you have to have a sort of an innate ability to do that. But the technical aspects of singing are very, very important. And you can do yourself real harm if you are singing incorrectly, technically incorrectly. So I'd advise you all to get lessons, or if you're having lessons, to continue lessons. But personally, it got to a point where I knew I would benefit from having a lesson with somebody in a different genre, just to see how they do it. And I learned so much. I must have been there for about 3 hours with this friend of mine, Richard, and I said, well, how do you do this and how do you do that? And he found it interesting from his perspective, because he sort of admires what I do and I admire what he does. And it was really, really interesting learning, focusing on breathing and how things should feel, as well as how he warms up and how he exercises his voice.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt. We are coming to the last few questions. We do have a few more, but don't miss this opportunity. If you do want to ask a question, you can either write it in the chat or just say, can I ask a question? And obviously you can ask it yourselves as well. Layla, you did have a technical question for Matt. If you want to ask it yourself, just unmute yourself, or if you'd like me to, just give a thumbs up and I'll ask it.
Yeah, I can ask it.
Thanks.
My question was because I struggle with a lot of tension in my jaw. So I was wondering what kind of things, like exercises and techniques, to release the tension and like help, to make it easier to sing and to be able to perform.
Right. Tension's a funny one, because tension can come from poor technique. It can also come from anxiety, like performance anxiety. So the key to eliminate as much performance anxiety as you can is preparation. I find if I've approached a gig and I've either not had enough time to learn the material properly, and it's new material, or if it's something that I'm not entirely comfortable with, that will lead to tension, and tension is the enemy. So prepare is the if you take one thing away from today, it's prepare, because that gives you, preparation is freedom. Preparation gives you that confidence, and confidence makes you more relaxed. Technically, if you want some exercises, I find if you there's five sounds. So you go V is a V. So you breathe in, relax your face, and you'll feel the buzzing in your lips, and that will help relieve tension in the face. There's also so breathe. So there's and just try and keep relaxed. What's the other one? I'll think of it in a minute. But those exercises, you'll feel the buzzing in your lips, and you concentrate on the relaxation in your cheeks and in your face. If your face is relaxed, your neck will be relaxed and your shoulders will be relaxed. You do that 4 or 5 times each sound, and you'll feel a difference. You'll feel a big difference. But preparation is the big one.
Thank you, Layla. Thanks, Matt. It's quite interesting listening actually as a brass player, just how similar some of the techniques are about relaxation and breathing. So yeah, some really good advice there. Another question we've got, Matt, is how do you go about trying to increase your range? And can you recommend any vocal exercises to help with this? I think range is quite a big issue, especially for young people. Yeah,
I've found my range has increased through practice and through taking risks. Technically, I'm not sure I can offer any help. I think if you do the sirening and you do the sirening with the straw, you can then take more risks, because you're not going to damage your voice by doing that. that's the straw and the back pressure reduces the risk of damaging your voice. So you can try that. I've been desperate to try and get my range, my bottom end range, lower. So I went for that lesson, and I said, look, how can I get lower? And he said, well, your range is your range to a certain extent. You know, you're born with it. I think you can extend your top end to a certain extent. Bottom end is a bit more difficult, but relaxation helps bottom end range, certainly. So if you can work on those relaxation techniques and keep everything nice and loose, your bottom end range will improve. But top end, I would have a go with the straw and siren, and just keep sirening and just keep sirening. Just try and stretch it a little bit higher, and I think over time that will help.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt. I've got one last question here, Matt, which is just a little bit about yourself. And someone's actually texted me in and said, can you ask Matt about some of the favourite gigs he's done? And are there any funny stories from those gigs that you can tell?
We were in. It sounds daft, but you've chatted to Russell, haven't you? Chatted to Russell Bennett.
Yes. For those that don't know, Russell Bennett's a world-class trumpet player who did the brass workshop a couple of weeks ago. We
were invited to travel with the John Wilson Orchestra to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, to perform for Seth MacFarlane. Anybody see Family Guy? Watch Family Guy or American Dad? Those programs. Well, he's the guy, and Ted 2, and those films. He's the guy that writes American Dad, and he writes Family Guy. And he's a massive fan of the John Wilson Orchestra, so he invited the whole orchestra out. He's also filthy rich, so he flew us all out to Los Angeles to do a gig in Hollywood for his 40th birthday, and it was a great gig, and lots of famous people there, and then he threw a big party afterwards, and there's Russell Bennett. There was a free bar basically, and Russell Bennett is standing there with 4 bottles of beer clutched to his chest like this. I said, Russ, you know it's free, don't you? You know you don't have to worry. I said, yeah, I do know it's free. He just kept clutching this beer to his chest, would not leave the bar. And we did have a very strange conversation with Gene Kelly's wife, who asked to be introduced to us. Russell can't remember a word he said to her. You know, this is like 1 degree of separation from one of the finest actor performers of all time. And he to this day, he cannot remember a word he said because it was a free bar.
Knowing Russell well as I do, been on tour with Russell a few times myself, yeah, I can totally imagine that. Yeah. What an amazing moment for him to forget.
We've got photographs, but that's about as far as it gets to him.
The evidence is there. Just one more question, Matt, unless anybody wants to raise a question at the end. Is someone said, what's the favourite venues that you've had the opportunity to perform at?
I think out of all the, I like small venues. I like intimate venues. I mean, I've had the fortune to perform at the Albert Hall. I think the Royal Albert Hall is one of the worst venues to sing in for any singer. The acoustics are awful. It's like singing in outer space. Festival Hall in London is a completely soulless room, and I've had the great fortune of I sang for Sinatra's centenary concert on the stage that he sang at Festival Hall, singing My Way, full house. You think it would be one of the most magical moments of all time, but the room has no soul. Symphony Hall is a different kettle of fish. Symphony Hall has, you can see nearly every pair of eyes because of the way it's constructed, and the sound quality in there is fantastic. It's one of the best halls. So I really, really do like Symphony Hall. But some of the smaller venues, the more intimate venues, you get so much more connection with an audience, because in a big concert hall you might have somebody who's sat 60 meters away. Now, trying to connect with that person, you can connect the voice and sell the message through the voice, but very often it's done through looking at the audience members. You look them in the eye, you sing a line, you look at another one in the eye, you sing them a line, and that connection then, it seems to spread through the audience, because everyone thinks you're singing to them, and that's really, really important as a singer, the connection to the audience. And sometimes that's a lot easier in a smaller venue, because you're getting that connection with a lot less effort, if you see what I mean. So some of the smaller venues, I'm trying to think, I used to really like, is it the Palace Theatre in Redditch? That used to be, it's a really sweet theatre. It's only about 300 seater, but it was one of these Frank Matcham theatres. Frank Matcham was a great theatre designer, Victorian maybe, but there was always these really ornate theatres, and there's just a handful of them left. You know, there's Birmingham, Buxton Opera House and Blackpool Opera House. The Palace Theatre, I think, is another one in Redditch. There's probably half a dozen, if that are still in tip-top condition. And those are really cool venues to sing in.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. It's quite interesting to see that it's not always bigger is better. You know, some of these big venues lose their soul a little bit. Another great question from Jelana, who's asked, have you got any tips on tackling nerves?
Again, preparation, but confidence in knowing your stuff is the biggest thing. It's the biggest weapon against nerves. Breathe. Try and steady your breathing down. Try and relax that way. Focus on the job. If you've trained yourself to sing that song, and you've really worked at it so that you know the song inside and out, you will have the confidence to perform that song. You might be nervous. Everybody gets nervous. I'll get nervous. But if you've prepared, then your training will take over, and you will be able to sing that song, and you will have the confidence to deliver it. If you're in doubt in any way, what's the second verse? What's the line after that one? Forget it. Your tension builds, and your confidence is shot, and that's it. You've lost it. So preparation is freedom. Prepare, and that will help nerves. It really is the biggest weapon against nerves.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. Again, that preparation is so key, and it comes up time and time again. And I know from my own experience, being your age as some of you on this workshop today, and standing on stage and being nervous. And when I look back, it's just because I wasn't sure if I was able to do it. In my case, I wasn't sure as a trumpet player if I was able to hit that note, and that's what the nerves were. Once I got to a position I could do it all, well, I just enjoyed it and I just settled into it. So preparation is so key. Rich, did you have a question you'd like to ask?
Yeah, it was only just an observation, Matt, really, just to pick your brains, really, because obviously it's a different age for a lot of the students that are trying to pursue singing as a career. And it's, as you know, the industry, it's shrinking. There's different, X Factor type scenario where people get their 30 seconds of fame. Would you advise us as teachers to encourage students, if they want to make a career out of singing, to try and cover as many different styles as possible to give them that almost jack of all trades? Or if there's a specific style that they want to sort of make it in, to stick to their guns and just focus purely on that? There's no right or wrong answer with this. It's just
it's a good question, because I've found through my personal experience, for a long time I couldn't make anywhere near a living just by singing Frank Sinatra songs. I've had to do all the time in the clubs, and I know there are far fewer clubs and things now, but all the time I had to do that, and parties and weddings and occasions like that, where you not only are you earning money, but you're gaining experience. You can't just go in there and sing swing stuff. You can't go in there and do an evening of Bing Crosby, because it's a party and people want to hear everything. So you have to be able, I've had to be able to do some of the pop stuff and the rock stuff. I mean, I'm limited to what I can do because of the way I sing and my range and all that, but there's plenty of material that I've been able to cover. So I would say try and learn as many different styles as you can, and perform those styles to the best of your ability, because the more styles you can sing, the more work you'll get.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if you want to specialize later on, that's fine, but experience, all experience is good experience. So if you've got to sing an evening of pop stuff, then do it. If you've got to sing an evening of swing stuff, do it. If you've got to sing a mixture of everything, do it. Learn all the styles and give it a go.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I mean, that's kind of what we try and encourage our students to do, actually, because I think it's really important, because the more styles that they have a go at, the more different things they're listening to and soaking up as a sponge, and then hopefully they can make informed decisions about where they're going to go with their singing. So, yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Matt. Just before I wrap it up, everybody, are there any last questions that people have thought of? I just have to scroll through. If there are, just unmute yourself and ask.
I had a really quick one.
Yeah, far away, Georgia.
Okay. Is there anything when you're on stage that looks more professional, like whether it's interacting with the band or the audience? Is there anything like movement that you do to make you look more comfortable on stage?
Good question. And I'm glad you asked this, because I see another mistake that I see a lot of young singers make is turning their back to the audience or singing to themselves. Now, it's so important when you're trying to bring an audience, you're trying to sell a story of a song and bring an audience along with you, that you look at the audience. Now, it's fine turning to the band if the band are doing something great, or you want to give somebody a nod in the band, you know, for applause from the audience. That's absolutely fine, but don't lose the connection with the audience, because the audience that's the key. That's where your energy has to be, your focus has to be. When you're singing, look at the audience, look at them. Don't stare, but maybe look for a line or two and then move on, and then look at someone else and sing a line or two. That's so important. It's so important not to do the looking down thing or the turning around and looking down thing. I see that a lot, and it's such a shame, because you don't maintain that connection. Another thing I also see is singers with words on stands. Avoid. It's a barrier, and there are some high-profile singers who still do that. It is a physical barrier between you and the audience, and if you've got words on a stand, you will look at them, whether you know the song or not. You will automatically look at them, because it's a safety net. And get rid of it. Learn the stuff, look at the audience, tell the story.
Brilliant. I don't want to keep you too much longer, Matt, but just on that, the fact that we get rid of a safety net and you stand up and look at the audience and be full of confidence. Would you say that singing is similar to acting?
Yeah, you're performing a role as a singer. You are telling that story, whether it's a story of Bad Leroy Brown, or it's a story of somebody heartbroken in the One for My Baby, or whether it's whatever it is. You're selling a story, you're selling an emotion, and that's acting. It's acting through music, isn't it? Really. Yeah, it's definitely acting.
Well, thanks so much. Guys, I've got to say we were so fortunate to have Matt joining us this evening. This event's been sponsored through SIMPSA, the Support Association for the Cellular Music Service, so a thank you to them. But you know, when we came into lockdown, Matt and a few other guests were going to come and perform with Jazz Matters, and when that didn't work out, we thought what a great opportunity to get Matt to try and inspire you guys during lockdown. Normally he would be out working and performing, so lockdown is worked out as a bit of a benefit for us, and we're just delighted to have Matt here. if you haven't seen Matt, go and watch him when lockdown's over. I think once or twice a year you might perform somewhere local like the Core Theatre, or as you mentioned earlier, the Redditch Theatre. Go on Matt's website and go and watch him. Maybe if you give him a wave, he'll wave back at you as well. But watching people and listening to people who are at the top of their game is how you're really, really going to learn. Don't settle for second best. Don't see your friend on stage and say, that's where I want to be. Aim higher, because the higher that you aim, the better you will become. I just wanted to finish, Matt. You said something at the start which really made me smile. I mentioned I was a huge fan of Harry Connick Jr., so much so I was actually listening to him last night on American Idol, berating somebody for singing far too many notes in a beautiful ballad. I remember when I was relatively young, turning on Stars in Their Eyes, which, as Matt said, was as big as the X Factor or Pop Idol. And I remember being so excited that this guy came on and sung as Harry Connick Jr. And it was you all those years ago. So
Oh,
isn't that fantastic? Yes.
Had hair and everything then.
I never knew it was you, and I've known you for many years now. So fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Just a couple of things which Matt's mentioned. Preparation is freedom. With the gigs, once you're out of lockdown, prepare. Know those songs inside out. Get your shirts and your dresses ironed ready the night before, so you're ready for that gig. And that connection with the audience. Don't be afraid to get rid of that sheet of music, to look up at the audience, and in a way you're going to be acting out that story of the song. So enjoy your music. As I say, we're so grateful to Matt just to come and give you a little bit of inspiration. I don't know any other music service that's fortunate enough to have such a calibre of Matt and the other guests in our workshops to come during lockdown and just come, and it's all free for you guys just to come and have a great evening with such a great person. So on behalf of myself and the music service, I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Matt. You've been absolutely wonderful as always.